There we go. So Caroline Nicholson is going to talk to us today about the history of manufacturing through murals. And she grew up visiting the Philadelphia Museum of Art near her home, and she is currently an honours student of art history at the University of St Andrews. And she's committee secretary for the Art History Society, and last summer held an internship with Freeman's Auction House. She has created her own YouTube channel, Learning to Love Art, with original short lectures on various works. She enjoys visiting museums, reading and swing dancing, and after completing her education, plans to pursue a career in the art auction field. So I will just ask her to start her video. So can you hear us, Caroline?
Yes, can you hear me?
You're just about, you are a little quiet though.
Okay. I'm moving closer. Is that better?
We'll all have to just turn up our volume. We should be fine. And so, if you're ready to share your slides and give a go at that.
Yes. Hang on a second. Let me just pull it up. All right. Can you see this? All right.
It's just coming through now. Yeah, we can see that. So if you want to start the slideshow, and we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. My name is Caroline Nicholson, and I am very happy to be here with you virtually today. The topic of my presentation is the history of manufacturing through murals. I believe murals are uniquely suited to portray manufacturing for three reasons. First, their size. Murals are typically very large, and so are able to convey the vast scope of the industry being portrayed in an impactful way. Secondly, location. Murals are usually displayed in public places, or at the least, in close proximity to the industry and community being portrayed. Lastly, murals depict the strong relationship between the specific industry and community. Murals almost always show not only aspects of manufacturing, such as production processes and the final product, but also show the actual workers who are members of the local community. The industry provides members of the community with a livelihood, with a productive occupation. People get to know each other through working together in a factory or shipyard. Even in settings where working conditions were far from ideal, the workers and their surrounding community were deeply touched by the industry and considered it a defining part of their culture. So the first mural I will talk about today is the John Lavery mural, Shipbuilding on the Clyde, which is currently displayed at the banquet hall of the Glasgow City Chambers. And you can see it here in this photograph on the far right. This mural was created in 1901, and it was made as part of a group of 4 murals on Glasgow's history. It really emphasizes the importance of the shipbuilding industry to Glasgow. And like all the murals in the banquet hall, it is a triptych, which means it is divided into 3 separate sections. And you can see that here with these golden columns. Sadly, I was unable to find a close-up photo of the completed mural, but this sketch made by the artist to help him in the painting process is very close to the final product. We can definitely see from the imagery in here that the workers are meant to be seen as heroic. They are portrayed as life-size, which helps them to feel more real and like they're a part of our world as the viewers. Particularly in the foreground of the center panel, we can see that to operate this machinery, these workers have to use collective effort and teamwork. We can also see that they are covered in soot, which probably means that they have been working for hours without a break. We can also see that this work really requires great mental and physical exertion that is required of these men to do their job. Above them in the background, we can see a large ship, which on the one hand really denotes the glory of what they've already achieved in terms of shipbuilding, but on the other hand, it denotes that the completed ship is an ideal towards which they are striving every day that they're on the job. Also in the background, we can see the River Clyde, which really provides a familiar and beautiful landscape setting for this mural. As I said previously, this mural was created by the Irish artist John Lavery, and he was part of a group of artists known as the Glasgow School. The Glasgow School was very different from prior groups of artists who had come out of Glasgow in the sense that they painted what interested them. Prior groups of artists who had come out of Glasgow painted images that they thought would please the public. And as a result, some of their works of art were considered to be very lackluster. But artists from the Glasgow School painted what interested them, and they took a great deal of influence from artists who worked in Europe, such as Jules Bastien Lepage and James Abbott McNeill Whistler. Lavery in particular was influenced by Jules Bastien Lepage. As a result of their works of art, they brought fame to Glasgow, and Lavery himself would win a gold medal from the Paris Salon for his efforts. Bearing this information in mind, it's important to note that all of the murals in the banquet hall of the Glasgow City Chambers were created by artists from the Glasgow School. And in this way, the whole room really feels embedded in the artistic culture of Glasgow. Lavery himself was not from Glasgow. He was originally from Belfast, but he spent many formative years of his adolescence in Glasgow, and he spent many important years of his career there as well. Shipbuilding on the Clyde is not typical of the type of work of art he is most famous for. He is usually most remembered for his depictions of members of high society, including wealthy patrons and members of his family. This painting of the ballerina, Anna Pavlova, is much more typical of the type of work of art he's most remembered for, because it really emphasizes the grace and the beauty of this elegant ballerina. Shipbuilding on the Clyde is very different from these works of art in the sense that it really emphasizes the heroism of the men who built ships for Glasgow and helped to make their city great. At the time of the creation of Shipbuilding on the Clyde, Glasgow was renowned worldwide for its excellence in shipbuilding. Glasgow shipbuilders not only supplied the Royal Navy, but other countries, such as Australia, Chile, and Brazil. Shipbuilding has been a part of Glasgow's culture dating back to the 15th century, and since then, Glaswegians have built a wide variety of ships, including torpedo boat destroyers and commercial steamships. And we can see an example of a torpedo boat destroyer that Glaswegians helped to build on the left here with the HMAS Warrego. Glaswegian shipbuilders helped to build this ship for the Australian Navy, which had just been founded at the time. But the Australians knew that they wanted Glaswegians to help build their ships and that they wanted to learn from the Glaswegians because they were the best. Similarly, on the right, we can see an image of the Comet, which was one of the first commercial steamships ever to set sail in Europe, and it set sail from Glasgow. So these are just two examples of the many kinds of ships that came out of Glasgow over the years. Bearing this information in mind, it's very significant that shipbuilding on the Clyde is placed in equal size and importance along with other murals about Glasgow's history. For example, another mural in the banquet hall of the Glasgow City Chambers features Saint Mungo, who, as most of you probably already know, is the patron saint of Glasgow. And by featuring imagery of shipbuilders in equal size and importance alongside Saint Mungo, it really emphasizes the importance that these shipbuilders are to Glasgow's history. The second mural I will talk about today is the Detroit Industry Murals by Diego Rivera, which are currently displayed at the Detroit Institute of Arts. These murals were created in 1933, and they comprise of a collection of 27 separate panels on 4 walls of the garden court of the Detroit Institute of Arts. As you can probably already tell, their style is very different from that of shipbuilding on the Clyde, while the style of shipbuilding on the Clyde is very much grounded in a sense of European realism. The Detroit Industry Murals demonstrate a Latin American sensibility because they were created by an artist from Mexico. These murals are epic in scale due to the number of panels and the amount of space that they utilize. In fact, the artist would actually ask permission to use all 4 walls of the garden court, even though he was initially only supposed to use 2, because that was how epic the narrative he wanted to tell was. In these murals, we can see a cradle-to-grave narrative of Detroit industry going back to the dawn of time. And we can see this imagery in the upper panels of the north and south wall. In these upper panels, we can see giant hands coming out of the earth clutching minerals. Now, these minerals would have been essential for the day-to-day operations of industry in Detroit. And in this way, the artist seems to be communicating to us that because these minerals have been around since the dawn of time, it can be said that industry has been around since the dawn of time and has slowly been developing and growing ever since then. We can also see specific scenes of manufacturing in the lower panels of the north and south walls. And as you can tell, these scenes are just gorgeous for the amount of intricate detail that they include. In the lower panel of the north wall, we can see a scene of manufacturing which involves the cylinders being hollowed out for engines. This would have been a very important step in the manufacturing processes for automobiles, and the automobile industry is the most important industry in Detroit. So it really reflects the industrial culture of Detroit in this way. You may notice these spindles hovering above the scene. These spindles are meant to be reminiscent of the guardian deities we often see in the architecture of the ancient Mesoamerican Toltec Empire. And in this way, the artist visually connects this contemporary scene of manufacturing to the ancient past. Similarly, on the south wall, we can see another equally intricate scene of fender welding, which also would have been a really important step in the manufacturing process for automobiles. We can see the narrative being continued in the east wall. On the east wall, we can see a pair of earth goddesses who appear as if they are about to bestow wheat and fruit on us, the viewers. In between them, we can see a baby in utero. This baby is meant to represent the germ of Detroit's technological greatness, growing within the womb of the earth, like I said previously, slowly growing and developing over time. So we can definitely see the themes that the artist has been working on continued in the east wall. But we see very different imagery in the west wall. On the west wall, we can see 4 trimotor planes being equipped for battle. And this would have almost seemed like an insult to one of the patrons of this work of art, Edsel Ford, because Ford trimotor planes were some of the most important products of the Ford Manufacturing Company, which was a major company in Detroit. And Edsel Ford was one of the patrons of this work of art. So connecting his product with the destruction of mankind almost would have seemed like an insult. But nevertheless, the murals, for the most part, went down well with the public. So it was a success for the artist, Diego Rivera. These murals were commissioned as part of a movement in the US known as the City Beautiful movement. This movement involved titans of industry from American cities commissioning works of art from Europe and having them hung in art galleries and museums in their hometowns. But William Valentiner, who was head of the Detroit Institute of Arts at the time, took a very different approach with the Detroit industry murals, in the sense that he commissioned murals that specifically featured the culture and industry of that very city, Detroit. And in many ways, Diego Rivera would have seemed like the perfect fit for this type of assignment. His artistic style was very popular in many circles in the United States at the time, and also he was very well known for his murals. In fact, at the time that he received the commission, he was already at work on a set of murals for San Francisco. Before he started work on these murals, he took months to study the steel foundries and automobile factories of Detroit. In particular, he studied the Ford River Rouge plant in Detroit, which is one of the most significant factories there. And while he didn't use any specific scenes or images from the plant, it definitely gave him a good idea of how the processes worked, and he used that a great deal when he was making the murals. The last mural I will talk about today is the Shipbuilders Public Art Mural, which is displayed on the side of a building in the city of Helsingør in Denmark. This mural was created in 2013 by the American artist Garin Baker. And as you can probably tell from this photo, in which these 2 men are being dwarfed by the mural, this mural is huge. It is 30 feet by 25 feet, and it creates a narrative of how ships were built during the period that the Helsingør shipyard was open, since it was closed in 1983. Again, Size, scale, and content are meant to impress on viewers that this is dangerous and heroic work. And we can see the artist recounting a right-to-left narrative here. On the far right, we can see an indoor factory scene in which we see a group of men operating what appears to be some very dangerous machinery. And it really communicates that these men are putting their physical safety on the line to be able to build ships for their country. In the center of the mural, we can see a huge ship being assembled, and it's really towering over everything else in the scene. And it really indicates that assembling the ship and building the ship is the most important part of these men's lives. Lastly, on the far left, we can see a completed ship. And similar to the Lavery mural, this imagery suggests that the completed ship is an ideal towards which these men are striving every day that they're on the job. In the very center of this mural, we can see a worker who's huge, again, confronting us directly with his gaze. Also, we can see one of his feet resting on a subtle metallic border that the artist has painted around the mural. In this way, this worker almost seems to be breaking the fourth wall. He seems to be suggesting by his presence that the Helsingør shipyard, even though it was closed decades ago, it's still affecting the future of the city, and it's a very important part of his history. Slightly behind him, we can see a sweeper with a broom, and he's probably a sweeper for the factory floor, but the artist seems to communicate with this imagery that every person and every job on this shipyard is important. As I said previously, this mural was created by the American artist Darren Baker. He has created murals for a wide variety of American cities, including Washington, D.C. and New York City. He is famous for his murals, and as you can probably tell just by looking at the imagery regarding the sweeper, he really likes to create narratives about people's lives. He believes that these types of narratives are some of the most important that he, as an artist, can recount. The Shipbuilders Public Art Mural was created as part of an effort to educate the citizens of Helsingør on the city's history. The shipyard was important to the community for many years. In fact, in the late 19th century, Denmark would be experiencing a crisis in which employers and employees would be having disputes over wages. And those employers that were members of Denmark's Employers Association would participate in lockouts, which resulted in many workers being unable to get to their jobs. But fortunately, the owners of the Helsingør shipyard were not part of this Employers Association, and as a result, people were able to keep working at the shipyard, and the economy of the city and thereby the country was bolstered. And this was particularly special because so many shipyards were participating in the lockouts at this point in time, and the Helsingør shipyard was one of the only ones to stay open. As I said previously, this shipyard was closed in 1983, but since then it has been converted into a museum, which I would highly recommend visiting if you want to learn more about the city and the shipyard in particular. So, in conclusion, murals are a popular art form that can be found in many cities today. Murals often depict aspects of local culture, such as local celebrities or important events. However, depictions of local industry are often the most impactful subjects of murals. These murals depict the power of industry through their size and location, but perhaps most importantly, depict the strong relationship between the industry and the surrounding community. Even long after a particular industry has closed, it is still an important part of the community history. Murals can depict the history of an industry and can be a statement of pride from the community. I would like to thank Mr. Matthew Bellhouse Moran and the other members of the committee for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. And I would also like to thank Kimmy Dobos-Wolf of the Detroit Institute of Arts for her valuable contributions to my presentation. Thank you very much, everyone, and I will be happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Caroline. That was very interesting. I think something that occurred to me while I was watching you talk as well was that it seems to me that an investment by a manufacturer into public art in the form of a mural represents an enormous initial outlay and is a big investment, but is actually an extremely efficient and cost-effective way of communicating, because for however long that exists, people will be walking past it and ingesting whatever message. So that was very interesting. I'll hand over to Emma, because I think we do have some comments.
Yes, we do.
Questions.
Thanks, Matthew. Thank you so much, Caroline. That was really, really interesting. I love murals, so it was fascinating to hear more. Siobhan Osgood, who's one of our speakers later, says, love John Lavery. He painted his wife Hazel as an Irish Colleen, which adorned the Irish £5 note before the euro, and the original is in the National Gallery in Ireland. Patrick, one of our earlier speakers, has said, listening to you talk, I'm thinking about Ken Curry's Glasgow history mural that I saw during my first visit to Glasgow in 1990. I bought at that occasion a catalogue published in 1998 by the Third Eye Gallery. I think the Glasgow history mural was exhibited in the People's Palace. He's asked, I don't know if you know anything about Ken Curry, but he's asked if he's still active, and I have actually found him on Art UK. He does still seem to be active. So I'll post the link up to that, Patrick, if you want to look at that in the questions. But I thought you might be interested to know that. Mike Sanders says, towards the end, you referred to industrial conflicts in the Danish shipbuilding industry, and I wondered if any of the murals actually acknowledged this conflict.
I don't think that any of the murals specifically acknowledged the conflict, because the main role of the murals was really to sort of honor the people who were working in the shipyards rather than to deal with the conflict. But it was a very important part of Denmark's history and a real big moment for the city in particular, showing that they stood their ground in the midst of the conflict.
One from Hannah Williamson. Is there usually public access to the Glasgow City Chambers to see the mural?
I believe there is, but sadly, because of the pandemic, they're restricting access. I wanted to go see it, but sadly, I wasn't allowed access, which I probably wouldn't have been able to get because I'm in the United States right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's shut down because of the pandemic, sadly. But hopefully it will be open soon and more people will be able to see it, because it's such a gorgeous mural. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that it would be in normal times. So yeah, we should, Hannah, have a look and see what you can find out if we ever get back to normal.
Nina Baker's nodding in the corner and she would know. So.
Oh, good. Good. Peter Wakelin, our speaker from this morning, has said, are you interested in collecting other examples of manufacturing murals? Because he can think of a few. So if you'd like me to put you in touch with him, then, or you can go into the questions and get in touch with him directly there. And one from Miriam MacDonald, one of our committee members. The Detroit wall murals looks like altar rails in the foreground. How do the murals help raise awareness of the now gone auto manufacturing within Detroit?
I just think that they really honor the automobile industry in Detroit. They really just showed how beautiful it is. And, you know, the Detroit Institute of Arts, it's their main attraction to this day. If you go onto their website, it's the first thing you see, photos of those murals. So I think in that way, it still sort of serves as a beautiful reminder of what was in the city.
Okay, thank you. That's all of our questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you, and another really interesting talk. We're doing really well today. So